Kamal, thank you so much for taking time. I know you had a great, very busy schedule. Thank you for coming here. And just for the benefit of audience and people tuned in online, can we do one more round of introduction?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Very
inviting.
hold a little closer. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for inviting me and having me here in this session. Kamil is my name. I am the president of the board of the Hauschka Association. The Hauschka Association is a non-profit making organization out of Switzerland that has been established back in 2021 with a mandate from Hedera Hauschka to drive the broad adoption of Hedera technology by deploying different enablement and empowerment programs, including innovation programs, virtual building programs, all the way up to incubation and acceleration. The program itself is worth $166 million to be deployed over 5 years. And I'm honored and pleased to be here today with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sam, I'll take the phone. I have the questions there. So I want to first off start, Kamal, especially someone from Web3. The huge fanboy movement for me and most of our members and our community here has been, how did you bring in some of the largest companies on the planet as your council members and council organizations? So those of you, who have not seen it or not heard it, the Hashgraph Association has organizations like Google, Dell, IIT Madras, all of them on their council. I want to know what is the vision behind and how did you make it happen?
So it started back in 2017 and 18 when I had the privilege of interacting and working with Dr. Levi Barrett and Finance Harvell, who are the inventors of the Hashgraph algorithm. And back at the time, we had two choices. One choice is the public ledgers, and the second option was private ledgers. So for those who are fully convinced about decentralization, basically using Bitcoin and Ethereum, but you still have enterprises and highly regulated organizations that need some sort of governance, and they go for private solutions like Corda and Hyperledger.
Yeah.
And back at the time, we said, okay, how can we bridge both worlds? How can we connect innovators, disruptors, pioneers, entrepreneurs with enterprises, large corporate enterprise, governmental entities, so that we can create a symbiotic ecosystem where we all collaborate in the interest of establishing our Web3 ecosystem. Right. And the idea was like, okay, how about having a public solution, basically a ledger that is public, accessible, transparent, but at the same time, you bring some sort of governance to it by onboarding trusted organizations, reputable organizations like Google, IBM, Google, the Bank of Singapore, Deutsche Telekom, and others that are going to maintain the network, govern the software changes, validate the transactions, and also help steer the development of Hedera platform. And I had also the privilege of being one of the initial co-founders, back at the time representing Swisscom Group, which is the largest ICT infrastructure provider out of Switzerland, together with Deutsche Telekom, Magazine Visa, DLA Piper, and Bank Nomura, and Boeing, to establish the initial governing council within Hedera. And as we speak today, we are already over 30 governing council members that are fully engaged, committed to online innovation, to drive innovation within the Hedera ecosystem, bring enterprise-grade use cases that can be built on Hedera while leveraging Hedera Hashgraph capabilities.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know I had this privilege of catching up with you backstage before we came here, and I understand back in 2016, when most of them didn't even know what Bitcoin was, you were working with one of the big fours, and then, how you pioneered the whole Bitcoin and what happens in Bitcoin with them. So having said that, you have been part of blockchain from the very, very early days. You're like a true OG. And but I also know that Hashgraph is not completely, what Web3 blockchain is. It has an edge compared to any other thing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Hedera Hashgraph is actually a DAT, a distributed ledger technology. And just to put things in order, blockchain or blockchain technologies are a subset of distributed ledger technologies. And the idea was, when we were discussing how we developed the platform, we realized that there are so many hurdles and shortcomings within a classical blockchain solution. So don't get me wrong, Bitcoin pioneered decentralized infrastructure. That was the first generation. Then Ethereum brought the programmability aspect to it, which represents the second generation of centralized solutions. And then we realized we need to implement a third generation platform where you bring the programmability, but you bring the governance component to it. With that said, yes, we have been witnessing the evolution of all these different solutions and products and, let's say, use bases. And Hedera, in that sense, it's unique because it gives you the capabilities of decentralized solutions, but at the same time, it is fulfilling the needs of regulators, meeting the expectations of businesses, especially the highly regulated ones like insurances, banks, and other large corporates. And at the same time, it's been implemented with the mission to provide a trust layer for decentralized solutions, serving pioneering startups all the way up to innovative enterprises and government entities.
Beautiful. I have a follow-on question.
Yeah.
I know you are the at the cusp of innovation and influence.
Yes.
And I know you are on one end dealing with some of the largest enterprises on the planet. You're also working with some of the largest government institutions, regulatory bodies, working with startups, working with universities. So how do you balance all of this, and how do you make sure we bring more clarity?
So, if you look at our overall strategy, the end goal is to establish a symbiotic ecosystem. And to have a symbiotic ecosystem, there are 4 key elements that you need to establish. Number 1, you need to have an infrastructure. Number 2, you need to have a regulatory framework. Without legal certainty, it doesn't matter how great your technology is, you cannot deploy solutions on the top of it. Number 3 is talent. So you need all the time to handle the supply side of the equation. So you have a lot of demands on the business and legacy, but we still need people who are good to implement and develop solutions. And last but not least is capital. So when we structured our strategy, we realized that there are 4 key pillars that we should really focus on. Number 1 is empowerment. Empowerment in our philosophy means providing Hedera Hashcap community with the technical and the functional know-how to design, develop, and deploy decentralized solutions that are viable. Number 2 is funding, basically deploying resources to achieve long-term success while sustaining transformation and impact. And that's the reason why we made an allocation back in September 2021 at the governing council level of $5 billion to be deployed in the ecosystem. Wow. Then third pillar was basically driving innovation by structuring entrepreneurship programs, innovation programs, venture building programs, where we provide funding, engineering expertise, business development support, and go-to-market support for the solutions of our Hedera. And last but not least is to scale up globally. That's the 4th pillar, by partnering with established and reputable organizations, be it universities, management consulting firms, technology partners, system integrators, with the goal to establish a symbiotic ecosystem where startups, innovators, enterprises, government entities, universities are all working hand in hand to establish a vibrant ecosystem for Hedera-powered digital transformation initiatives.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kamal, I also know that you are involved in a lot of national initiatives. I know at least half a dozen nations and national leaders and the funds that you're working with. I have a very, technical question that I made a note of. Today, when you see these stakeholders explore DLT through Hedera, what is the biggest mindset shift that you see in them?
Yes, I mean, if I compare 2025 versus 2017, back in 2017, people were struggling to understand or differentiate between blockchain and crypto. So we started providing a lot of educational programs, master classes, executive workshops, just to drive the promotional aspect and education aspect so that people can understand the technology. And that's what I mean earlier on when I said if people don't understand your technology and you don't know how to use it, they are not going to start any use cases or therefore any solutions on it. So back at the time, we were struggling to really explain what is the technology is, how it works, what it does, and what it is. But now we are already in a stage where people are coming to ask, We understand the technology.
Yeah.
What are the use cases? How are you going to solve my business needs, or how are you going to fulfill my business needs while leveraging DLT solutions combined with AI, IoT, robotics, and so on and so forth. So the mind shift here is number one, there are no longer discussions around the technology and reliability of the technology itself. So the focus now is more about the use cases and off-the-shelf solutions. And number two is where are we with the overlap with other emerging technologies, meaning AI, meaning IoT, local robot platforms, PI, ER, robotics, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Where we can leverage the synergies of all these cutting-edge solutions.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Kamal, I move on to my next question. You are one of those very few unique leaders who plays the role of both leading the global strategy and also deep technology, right? I mean, we have seen one end of the spectrum where we have our, dear founders like Vitalik, who's like a techie geek nerd who, is hardcore tech. And then we have seen the other end of spectrum where people are like fully into strategy. You are a perfect blend and combination of those two. What's your take on the adoption of Web3 in the emerging markets?
I mean, 5 years ago, Web3 or let's say blockchain or decentralized solutions were mainly dominated in Europe because I can give you a few examples or a few examples. Pioneers, investors were looking after a jurisdiction where crypto and digital assets were kind of legalized or regulated. And in that sense, Liechtenstein and Switzerland pioneered. So they were like the early regulators in the world that published regulatory framework for digital assets. However, as we speak today, we see massive shift from emerging markets. And I can give you another example. We launched an initiative last year. We offered a training, a certification program. We managed to onboard about 24,000 individuals registered to be trained and certified, from which 5,000 completed the training and certification in 1 month.
Wow.
And take a guess, 3,000 or 3,000 plus of these trained and certified people are coming from emerging markets. Wow. So that's already gives you a sign that the demand side and the supply side are kind of shifting. And I do predict that going forward, we will see more talented people coming from emerging markets serving the globe when it comes to digital solutions.
I love the numbers. I mean, the numbers are phenomenal. Just a follow-on question now that, you see so much of demand coming in. There are a lot of people here in the audience, tuned in online, all of them, very curious to know, one use case that, I know you've done a lot of work both in the public and the private and the enterprise sector. One use case that they should take away, which is phenomenal. What would that be?
I mean, at the enterprise level and for the broad adoption, there are many use cases, but if there is one I would have to pick, I would say the digital identity or the self-sovereign identity.
Beautiful.
This is like the starting building block if you want to enter the Web3 era. It doesn't matter. You deal with startups, you deal with enterprises, with government entities, with universities. It all starts with digital identity. For two reasons. Number one, it is a safe and secure way to enter the digital era, including the Web3 space. And the second reason, it also gives you as a user some sort of certainty and confidence and some sort of presence also in the Web3, where you identify yourself within a cosmos of digital solutions that is containing massive overlaps across all the different technologies and different service providers, solution providers, and also a new era of innovative digital scale.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Kamal, you have been a huge technology advocate. You saw the future of blockchain when people hardly knew what Bitcoin was, and you built phenomenal, the Hash Graph Association and the organizations. Now, if you look at any conference, including ours here in TOKEN2049, every single main stage is talking about AI, AI, AI. And there's a huge debate. Will AI displace blockchain? Will they coexist together? What's going to happen? So what's your take on it?
To answer this question, I will take a step back and then just start reflecting about what is Web 1, what is Web 2, and what is Web 3.
Yeah.
And then we will have the answer. So Web 1 was basically the internet iteration where you had users have only one single option. read information. You access www dot, and then you read the information, and that's it. We don't have any ability to interact or write content. Then in the 90s, we moved to the Web 2, where the users have the opportunity to read and write, basically read and interact. Now, in my view, we are in the iteration. It's not completed yet. We are still in the iteration of Web 3, where the users can read, write, and interact, plus own assets. So, looking at it from a holistic view, I strongly believe, all these emerging technologies will coexist, and we will see powerful solutions, systems, and platforms. I call them polyglot platforms, basically platforms that are implementing different technologies, blockchain, AI, robotics, IoT, depending on the industry, depending on the use case. And just to give an example, by having such kind of a category of polyglot platforms or polyglot systems, you will have a system that is implementing blockchain to give you, let's say, an infrastructure that enables you to execute trustless transactions or permissionless transactions. And if you add AI component jet, you will have the cognitive capability and ability to analyze data, automate decision making. You kind of keep adding things on the platform itself. So in a summary, to realize the vision of Web3, to fulfill that full picture or to accomplish the full picture of Web3, we will need to leverage the synergies of all these emerging technologies together.
Beautiful.
So they will coexist.
Beautiful. So the takeaway is very beautiful. The AI and Web3 will not only coexist, but AI will make Web3 much better, faster, frictionless. That's phenomenal. So, Kamal, I move on to the next point. Probably you, me, and many founders here have faced it. When we go on to raise large funds, especially if you're raising funds from traditional Web2 investors, they are scared when you say Web3 and crypto and all of that. What is your take on it, on the perception?
It's a very good question, since we have also a venture capital fund in Abu Dhabi dedicated for all the startups that completed the grant program / the innovation program. And based on my humble experience dealing with or interacting with investors, but also investees, investors all of the time, they look at three things: the team behind that project, the use case, the category. Are you active in finance, on-chain finance, DeFi, or is it more in sustainability? Is it more in consumer engagements, loyalty programs? So the investors, they kind of developed some sort of experience and knowledge. And now the level of questions and the quality of questions that we are receiving from investors is way much better than it used to be 5 years ago.
Beautiful.
So basically, there is some sort of development, there is some sort of improvement. And we are now witnessing more investors that are really understanding the ins and outs of the technologies. So it's a good sign.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know that you've been working with a lot of developing emerging economies and all of that. I wouldn't say underprivileged, but yeah, the less privileged ones. How do you make sure that there is a equitable access for the Web3 tech strategy, all of that?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
In the underprivileged markets, how do you? Yeah.
One of our strategic initiatives that we have launched is we said that we would like to target strategic regions and operate out of key jurisdictions. And to address this type of needs in the market, we do launch regional venture studios where we do partner with sovereign wealth funds, business partners, local business partners, and regional investors, where the Hardcap Association / the Hardcap Venture Fund contributes at least 20%, and 80% is coming from local investors and business partners to provide trainings, workshops, investments, basically equity investments, incubation acceleration programs, so that we can upscale local talent and connect them with the global ecosystem so that they can compete, collaborate, and also learn from each other by driving one key component, which is cross-correlation, basically connecting entrepreneurs and innovators and startups, enterprises, be it large corporates or small and mid-sized enterprises with each other and try to establish a global ecosystem where individuals can easily interact with organizations.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I know we don't want to come to an end and, we want to go on, but given the time and the time limit we have, I come to the last question before we summarize everything. Today, if you have a choice to redesign something, be it enterprise, corporate, government, education institutions, what would that one thing be, Kamal?
I'm a strong believer of top-down approach when it comes to adoption. In that case, I would pick up the government for a simple reason. Government has access to the regulators, has access to government institutions. So if you manage to educate, train government officials and the decision makers and explain to them the value add and the value contribution that is, or the opportunity that you will harness if you leverage or harness the capabilities of this type of technologies, it would be easier to communicate the message across the community rather than the bottom-up approach. The bottom-up approach is easy at the beginning, very difficult to establish, while the top-down approach is very hard at the beginning. I mean, you will struggle just to find a meeting, but it gets easier with the time. So the more you invest at the beginning, the easier your life will be. So I would pick up the top-down approach. In that case, I would engage directly with government entities.
Love it. Lovely. So, Kamal, thank you so much. I know, like I said, you took time off your busy schedule, hectic schedule here. Just to reiterate everything that we learned, everything we heard today is obviously the Hashgraph Association is pushing the envelope forward. I know that you're working with a lot of sovereign wealth funds and a lot of institutions and governments here. We would need more advocates and more entrepreneurs and founders like you who will change the whole image and the reputation and perception of Web3 and crypto and blockchain. Once again, thank you so much for taking time. It was an honor hosting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.